Yes, it starts
Oh,
recording.
stop that.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll just be careful.
Yeah.
So we're all good.
yeah, and
Do I
then,
need to click something there?
No.
That control?
no, it'll go into your, so your meeting ID is. So,
I think it has.
Passcode is, now, we just comments.
We'll just. Yeah, and what is the procedure like? What
Something is. It's around here.
You hear how it goes?
Yes. Is there a microphone?
Oh, perfectly fine. Just wanted to check.
Um. So you can't hear us when we turn off the audio.
and when we turn off the audio, we have the echo. So the echo is not resolved. Okay. We thought we resolved it. We didn't.
You know what, how we going to deal with the audio?
Someone else is gonna be.
No.
Finance didn't have this.
He was here and we couldn't fix it.
Turn on your. Yeah, the finance people, they had a meeting.
I know, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, both the historic schoolhouse and the Portola Valley login have their audio enabled. I don't know where each one comes from, but that sounds like one too many.
So maybe how we can deal with this one?
Okay.
Going to, no, it doesn't. Then they can't hear us at all. They can't hear us. If you turn this off, they can't hear us. They can't hear us. I need to get it.
All right, now try. No, they can't hear me. They can't hear me. It's muted. Can the audience hear me?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
You could hear me?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you. We resolved it. Okay. Can somebody take notes? Judy, okay. Yeah, it's Megan, yeah, okay. All right. Calling the meeting to order. It's 7:07, sorry to be late. Let's do the roll call. Marianne Plunder here. Judy Murphy. Here. Megan Richard, nope. Nona Chiarello. Here. Risa Coleman. Here. Nancy Freer. Here. Catherine Magill, nope. Peter Waltz.
Yep.
Jörg Zimmerman, no. Okay. Then let's go to oral communications. Does anybody have anything for oral communications? Nope. I have one little thing. That's just for a reference for the minutes. Nona mentioned after the cutoff date for the agenda that she has spoken to Woodside. They have been doing some advertising about the backyard habitat and will put that on the next month's agenda. Does anybody in the audience have anything for oral communication? Nope. Okay. So what we,
Yes,
oh, Christy. Yes, Christy.
thank you. I was wondering for the wildlife fence, if the bottom rail of the fence does not have any spikes on it. So I didn't know, yeah,
Christy, this is an item on the agenda. and we
okay,
can
so let
address
me
it.
go to another one then. I'll go to my second one. I was reading the folder on Dorothy Ford Park in the History Museum in the library. And I noticed the Conservation Committee was quite involved with creating the park. And I'm not sure if you all have had a chance to go over that folder and really dig into it. I was quite surprised, and I was hoping this committee would submit a letter to protect the Little League field at minimum and the parking lot. And tomorrow night, the parking lot is not in the protection note 2. So does this committee care about the park and its creation? And if so, are you interested in pulling your old letter and submitting it by noon tomorrow and creating a new letter And have you had a chance to review the extensive participation of this committee in 1970 and 1971?
Christy, this is oral communication, so we can duly note, but we cannot discuss it.
So tomorrow night, you're not discussing at all? Tomorrow night, what's on the agenda? It's not of interest to the Conservation Committee. Is that what you're
This-
saying?
Christy, this is oral communications. We can duly note what you're saying, but we cannot respond to it or discuss. So we'll note it and we'll think about it, but that's all we can do at oral communication.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then what we decided, because Alan is here, we're going to pull forward the tree removal permit for, what's your address? 447.
Can I ask that we at least go through the approval of the minutes before
Oh, I'm
we
sorry,
jump?
approval of the minutes. Thank you. Too fast. Did everybody have a chance to read the minutes? Any changes?
No did, no changes.
Okay, then motion
I move that we approve them as written. They were very comprehensive.
second,
I second.
all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
thank you very much. Okay, and now we'll move to 440 Cervantes. So usually we don't discuss the tree permits. So I'll just summarize quickly what this is about. There are a number of redwood trees, and I think there are about 6. And the Conservation Committee looked at it and approved the removal of 2 of them, and we did not approve the removal of the rest because the root, what do you call it? The root structure is not compromised. And so, Alan, would you like to voice your concerns? Over there at the podium.
I thought it was 3 approved, but in any event. The issue we have is that I guess there's 5 or 6 of them. They're near the house. They're near where we're building the new house. They're near where the same place where the old house was, sidewall. They put off a tremendous amount of debris, as you can imagine, redwoods would. And it's a fire hazard given and given all the fires we've had in California. I guess I'm kind of surprised. We're trying to build the house as fire resistant as possible. We've got every, metal roof and this and that we can do. These are not protected trees in the normal course, as I understand it. We're happy to plant additional trees somewhere else to compensate for those trees on the property. We have a lot of trees on the property, but having them right next to the house is not, doesn't seem sensible relative to balancing. I understand there's a conservation need. There's also a fire protection need. And fire protection and the related insurance costs that go with it, or lack of insurance that people can get, has obviously raised in terms of prominence as we go through drought over the, last X years, and expect to continue to go through drought years and more fire in the area. I guess I'm a little taken aback by the fact that it's important to keep these trees here relative to the fire risk that goes with them and the debris that will fall on the roof and all around the house as a result of those trees. I guess I'm curious how people balance fire and conservation. And like I said, we're willing to plant new trees. We've done that before.
I think probably the best answer is if you have fire concerns, that you ask the fire department to come out and give you an assessment. If the fire department makes a report and says these trees are a fire risk, the fire department has the say.
Okay.
So that's what I would recommend, because we can't really speak about the fire.
So I just have a question for you. I was not part of the team that came to look at the proposal for this property
Yep.
when it was submitted with the plans and everything. So these trees were not designated at that time for removal and have subsequently been indicated for removal. Is that
There
what
when the
I'm
conservation
understanding?
people were there.
I just am asking that question. 'cause
I don't
you-
know the answer. I don't know what designated means and doesn't mean. I'm
It
not a-
means if it's on your blueprints and it says, these trees need to be removed because they're too close to.
No, it's not. the
Okay,
case.
that's all, that was what I was just asking. I was trying to get clarification
believe
because this is a little unusual. Normally, when we see a site redevelopment proposal, the trees to be removed are clearly indicated so that the Conservation Committee can evaluate it at that time. I'm curious. That was all. Thank you.
So we hear you, and from the fire perspective, have the fire department come out and.
Can I just ask a question
Please
too? This was, so although you have an application in to build a house, et cetera, we got a separate tree permit?
So what happened is I was part of that we had two meetings. The original meeting, we discussed the trees and the trees were not being asked to be removed, and we strongly supported that the trees stay because one of the reasons we feel the trees are protected there because this is a high water table, and so they are absolutely normal to be there. And we actually believe that it's good for these trees to be there because they will suck up water. So at the original meeting, there was no question about
But once again,
removing them.
Marianne, I'm sorry, the original meeting of.
Site
tr-
permit,
of a
site
tree
permit.
The
The
site
site
permit,
permit.
not a tree permit.
No, it was
Okay.
the site permit, yeah. And we did discuss that if the new retaining wall would be infringing on the roots, that should be then revisited. And what happened is you did some excavation, and it's very clear that where the retaining wall goes, the two trees on the far right are, the roots are being compromised, yeah. However, the other trees are far enough back, there is over like 15 feet or so, so the roots are not compromised. And so
15 feet away from the house,
from the retaining wall.
retaining wall that supports the house.
Uh,
Or it's
they-
out in
Actually,
the
it
yard,
is it's a slope, so the trees
more
slope
than
down.
15 feet away from the
Yeah,
house.
yeah, yeah. And so we looked at it, we don't think it's a fire hazard. Redwood trees are not really a fire hazard, but we did recommend that you limb them up so that it's not in any way a ladder fuel. But we don't really want to make a statement about fire hazard because that is the fire department.
Can I ask you one question? When you're talking
Yes.
about the water table, how does that, I'm not a tree expert, so in years of which there are many, when there's drought and those trees were compromised because they couldn't get enough water, how do you kind of look at that?
These trees look very healthy. So look, for example, the other tree you asked for removal on the right-hand side, where there are several, and that one is not healthy. And so you can see that, and you asked that to be removed, and we agreed. So that's how you see it. Yeah, sure.
I'm MJ Lee. I don't know everybody. Want me to try to share them, or do you want to just talk through them? I did log into Zoom. Well, it should only be 3 minutes, I'm hoping. But,
We can probably look at them along
We'll look at
with
them.
you.
Just go ahead. Yeah.
Desmond? Yeah.
So I'm on the Wildfire Preparedness Committee, and if any of you, have any of you lost your insurance? Because last year I got, last year I got I had been working on my wildfire mitigation for 4 years, so I was able to get my insurance reinstated by qualifying for this wildfire prepared home designation. Okay, now the thing that worried me the most about that, getting that designation, because I'd worked on everything else, was the trees, was Lawrence trees. Because wildfire prepared, you have to have the tree branches at least 5 feet away from your house. And the thing is, they want it 5 feet up to the sun. And, you know, as the trees get to the top, you know, you can't trim them back that much without paying a lot of money. As it was in 2022, we paid $2,000 to trim those trees back. And if you look at your slides, so at the very back, there's pictures of what the trees look like before we trimmed them and what they look like a couple days ago. And you can see that basically I'm gonna have, you can see where I've kind of hacked away at these trees with Lauren's permission. And that I'm gonna have to keep doing that higher and higher up, which is gonna get more and more expensive. So, and I want to point now, if we go back to the first or second page, I just want to show you that I wanted to take this opportunity to educate you guys. First of all, Lauren has designed, Lauren and Ellen have designed this wildfire prepared home plus level house, but they won't be able to get that designation at all if those trees stay. Because if you look at the first page, it says, on the left, it says, you have to have 10 feet between tree canopies if the trees are within 5 to 30 feet from the structure. So automatically, they can't even qualify for the base level, which is what I have. Secondly, as you probably know, on the left, the fire district requires that tree limbs be limbed up 10 feet above the roof. So if you, again, if you look at the third picture that I took of their house, you can see where these trees are going to be infringing on the house, and they're going to have to be limbed up so high, you're going to have trees looking like lollipops. And I don't think that's going to be good for the trees. And on our side of the fence, we're going to have to be trimming up those trees the same way. So I think, oh, and then there's another page in here. Sorry, I'm out of order. But the California Fire Code says that in a WUI area, which is what we are, the conifer drip line at maturity should be 30 feet from a structure. So that tells you that you shouldn't be having a conifer, which is a redwood tree, within 30 feet of the house. So for you guys to say, no, you can't remove these trees, basically you're denying their future ability to get insurance, and you're also jeopardizing our ability to get insurance. Now, I got away with it on this wildfire prepared home because their trees are on the other side of the fence. So they didn't really count them as far as that 30 feet thing. But the thing is ABHS is moving to a wildfire prepared neighborhood designation. And pretty soon, unless all the houses comply, you're not going to be able to get insurance. It's pretty clear the way things are going. It's only going to get worse. And so I really urge you guys to let, you know, homeowners do the things that they need to do so that they can get insurance if that's what they want.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for having put together this beautiful presentation. So what I would recommend that we are revisiting this, we're going to, we can ask the fire department to come out because you're talking about fire and we are not the fire people. So I would recommend, and we can do that. We can, or do you want to ask the fire department? It doesn't really matter.
Last year, I got one of the ad hoc wildfire inspections, and the inspector told me that on my side of the house that faced those trees, I needed to replace my siding. And I got a quote for that for $20,000, but I didn't really like what the contractor said, how he was going to do it. So I didn't pursue it.
Well, we
But-
have a
but-
new ordinance.
saying they put that into my inspection report, that I needed to protect against those trees. And I tried to get them to write a letter for tonight, but it turned out Kim is out of town and the inspector didn't reply, but yeah, we can see what they say, but I'm telling you, based on what I know, that, it's really gonna come down to insurance.
I hear you, and we have to keep going. I hear you, definitely, and we don't take this lightly. So but we are not the fire people, and you're making a lot of fire arguments. So what I recommend, that the fire department comes out, and they will come out very quickly, and that they do a report. And then we'll take it from there. So if that is, yeah. Okay, and thank you so much for bringing this. We certainly want to hear you and we want to be responsive.
Can I also say before you go, that usually in your application for a permit for a home, the fire department has to sign off. So within all the paperwork that's coming out around your permit and inspections and who signs off on what, there is a fire department thing in there already. There should be.
Mhm.
And the other thing to say is, since it's part of a site recommendation, what we say, it's not a separate tree permit. So what we say is not the final word. What we say is the recommendation to ASCC. So when ASCC considers this, they will look at that, listen to you, and make a determination. So this isn't as if you had applied for a separate tree permit where we're kind of the last word, except unless you appeal to the planning committee. There's a process now that goes from us to ASCC that
Judy,
includes fire.
They already have approval. They're building. They're already building. No,
Ask
no, they're
that.
building. They're building.
Got it. So it didn't come up when you
No,
saw
no.
ASCC.
It wasn't
I-
on it. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got it.
No, let's, because, yeah, and let's take it from there. Thank you so much for coming and spending your time. Okay. Discussing the possible new conservation committee meeting time. Has everybody? Yes.
Sorry, if we're gonna stay
Oh,
on the
budget. I'm
agenda,
sorry,
we
sorry.
need
Yes,
to
yes,
go
yes.
to item 4.
Budget. Thank you, Judy. Thank you. Budget, right? We're at the budget. Good. Did everybody have a chance to look at the budget spreadsheet? It was sent to you in the packet, and it was sent to you in my email. Well, it was sent to you in the packet, in the agenda packet.
When I printed out the agenda packet, it wasn't one of the things.
It's
that printed
definitely
out.
there.
It's not in the agenda packet.
They
I don't
didn't it-
think.
It's in the agenda packet, definitely. I printed it from the agenda packet.
From the,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
It's
that one is.
definitely
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
okay.
You didn't have a
okay.
chance to read it?
from the
Yeah.
calendar.
Yes, from the
From-
calendar.
It's on.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
So that's all right. It's fine. Let's take the time to read one item after the other if you didn't have a chance. So the first item is frog pond maintenance. This is something Yogi sent me an email, and he told me in the past this was somehow under possibly Public Works or something, but he had concerns that this is not going to happen, and so he asked if we could put it into our budget. And we can try, unless somebody has a reason that it shouldn't.
So technically, shouldn't it go under the open space maintenance budget?
Well, that's a good idea. You're in the open space committee.
Well, the joint subcommittee recommended that there be $65,000 allocated from the open space fund for open space maintenance during this fiscal year.
Okay. So let's move this over to you then.
I don't see any
Perfect.
reason
Thank you.
not to do that.
Thank you. Okay. So we'll
Plus-
cross that off.
Just a reminder that there is a separate fund for road remnant maintenance. That's an existing fund that is separate from the open space fund.
Okay. All right. Then,
That's Public Works. That's within Public Works. Where is that money? from?
It's a line item in the budget when I've looked at it in the past. It's called out separately, and I think it's
Interesting.
because it was funded by a donor.
I think also one of the things that Yogi had been hoping for in there was not just the maintenance, but signage. He's been talking about signage and that kind of thing. So I think he may have wanted some money to accomplish those things, and the educational plaque and so rather than taking it all out, maybe we should just make it $500. So he has-
500?
So he has some room to do.
Okay.
those
I wouldn't call
things.
that maintenance, though.
You would call that maintenance?
I would not
No,
call
that's
it
what I'm
sign
saying.
maintenance.
That's
Yeah.
why I'm saying it should
So
we
let's
should
cross
maintain
off-
an item here.
Yeah.
So that open space handles the maintenance and we handle these improvement kind of things we're talking about.
Okay. Signage. All right. Signage, is that expensive? I don't know what signage. All right. Next thing is I put in banners because we have an issue with banners. And the last banner was $70. So, and it's a one-time banner. So I put in 210 for some one-time banners.
I thought the banners that we had were all had where you could change the date
No,
on them.
no.
No.
Megan had a one-time banner, it can't be changed. It was the cheapest banner, $70.
So we lost the one that had
Yeah,
the
nobody
date
knows where it
change.
is.
No, but my point is, shouldn't we get one where you could change the date if it
Yeah.
costs a little more?
So
Instead of
Judy,
spending
uh,
$70 every year?
so I put Megan in touch um, with Trails because that's who I'm familiar with banners. And that technology, for some reason, is not simple. And so that's kind of where it's evolved from the current companies that we know of to deal with, because that's what Barb has said in years past, that you can't just change something easily on the banners.
That's why they got cheaper and are throwaway items.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that okay? We'll leave it the way it is.
Conservationists in the East is very resistant to getting a new thing every year if you could avoid it.
We can work on it. Then the fall lecture event, which stands for lecture event. I left in the $400 unless somebody thinks this is not enough. Okay. And then the spring lecture event, so maybe we should say events and $800. Well, we can leave it that way, and if something gets cut, then the broom pool refreshments. I think I have reduced the amount. I think, where are we? I'm 100. Judy, I mean, you were the expert.
It used to be that we made cookies and bought water and I don't think we did anything this year.
Right.
and
We didn't anything.
Nobody keeled over, so.
Okay. Then we absolutely need the backyard habitat reprint, and I put in $400. I do not know if $400 is enough. I really don't know. Does anybody have better numbers on reprints?
Yeah, I think we should just print as many as we can with $400.
Yeah, we'll print as many as we can for $400.
Yeah, well, there's probably a scale, economy scale.
Yeah,
Didn't you have them done last time or did, Randy did them, I think, for us?
So-
when we did 'em?
this is actually a separate issue. Nobody really knows where the source code is of this, but this is not a topic for right now. That's not a topic for right now. We need to figure this out because it's a good brochure and we need to reprint it. We need to find it. Okay, then the table handouts, that depends how many events we have. We seem to have less and less events. And then I put in, I put it up for you to decide. I put in native plant seed for Springtown and town right of way. If we want to do some seeding of native. Put it in the agenda. If we don't, so it's up to the committee to
Our
decide.
experience with right-of-way seeding over many, many, many years has been that we seed and nothing shows up because the weeds overtake it.
Mhm.
And we did years and years of poppies primarily, but other things as well. And they
Okay.
just, that doesn't, I would say we shouldn't
So
waste money.
Take it
seeding.
out, take the town
right
right of
away.
way out. What about Springdown? We have done this in the past. And this year, next year, it might be even more.
I'm just saying it's been a little iffy. We've seeded, but then they've mowed
Right.
We're actually going to talk about this a little later in the
Okay.
agenda.
All right.
So, but
So let's
if we
leave it
want
in for the time being.
if we want to take care of this now, I think maybe we should just approve just say, let's revisit that line after we talk about Springdown. Can we do that?
Sure, we'll
Yeah.
put it aside.
And then we'll get.
Let's
put
just
it
not
aside
forget.
Till then, and we'll finish it tonight.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
That's fine.
I just wanted to ask about a possible addition.
Yes.
Which is if we do get any applications for backyard habitat awards, do we have any awards or
Yes,
available?
we have plenty.
Okay.
Yes. But that's a good question. It's all in my garage, rusting away. So does anybody have anything in addition for the budget? Okay, if not, then we'll put it aside and whatever comes at the spring down, we will revisit it, but let's not forget to approve it because I need to send it to Tony. All right?
Well,
that's-
can then, maybe I can just make a motion that says, we approve this, budget, and we will determine the number in the last line after our spring down.
Sorry,
discuss-
but I don't know what we're approving because we already said we weren't going to approve the frog pond aspect to it. So what are we saying we're
We changed
approving?
that. So the frog pond aspect, we changed from $1,700 to $500.
Okay.
The-
So
The other things we said, every number that was there was okay, except then down to the last one, which we're gonna determine what amount goes in there after we have our discussion. So was that too loosey-goosey, open-ended, or was that,
no, that's fine.
yeah?
That's
So
fine.
that's my motion.
Okay, do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right. New business.
Did everybody vote?
Yeah, everybody voted, yes. So just a quick thing, you might notice that the agenda looks a little bit different than it looked in the past. What I did, I moved the new business to the front because usually the new business is the exciting stuff. And we used to have it at the end when everybody was dead and tired and wanted to go home. So that's why the new business is in front. So let's discuss how everybody feels about changing the meeting time to either 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. With, as I mentioned, the idea would be that if we have an earlier meeting, it would be easier to get somebody from staff to come and join us, Kim to join us. So that's the rationale behind it. So how does everybody feel?
So do we have any commitment from anyone from staff that they would actually come if we moved our meeting up earlier or?
Of course not. I didn't ask them, but we might
Okay.
we might want to ask them because in the past
I
we-
know, but that's kind of, so you're asking us to approve changing something based on something that we haven't actually.
No, I am asking because I think this is a very late time to start a meeting.
Okay.
And if it is earlier, we might have a better chance if we invite whatever we invite to join us at 5 o'clock or at 6 o'clock than at 7 o'clock. So that is my question and this is up for discussion.
I think for staff, town staff, you want to get them, you actually should aim for within their working hours, because that's when they're here and that's when they're working. But anytime after 5 is asking them to come special. And Kim is a little different because she's doing all kinds of stuff. That said, I'm 6 o'clock would be fine for me. 5, I think, is a little early. I don't know about nor our council person. Sorry, and I don't know how it would impact people watching from home because people work still.
We are the only meeting that meets that late. Who meets that late? Who meets that late?
Council meets that late.
Which one?
I don't know which one, but I'm.
My only concern is finance committee that doesn't have a set time falls on either Monday or Tuesday. And if it's Tuesday, like today, it ran until 4 till 6:30. So I don't know. I mean,
So
obviously.
if they don't have a set time and we have a set time, couldn't that easily be resolved?
I would think so.
Yeah.
given
I mean, the
that-
question is, do we want to do it? That's really the question. How does the committee feel?
So, I am open to changing the time, but I work, so I would be more likely to miss meetings if it's earlier,
Or the 6 as
especially in the,
badly as
6
the
o'clock?
5?
especially in the summer.
6 as well as 5?
I can do 5 like in the winter time, but not in the summer.
And what about
Okay,
6? 6
that's,
is the
that's a
same.
good argument. Could you do 6?
I would think that Megan and Yogi and Catherine should be here because, I mean, I wouldn't want to make a decision without them weighing in.
I asked Yogi, Yogi is happy. Yogi said it can be at 5 or at 6. He's happy. He would actually prefer having it earlier.
I think 5 is too early.
Okay, that's good feedback. You wanted to say something?
My comment would be, if it's a one-time thing, say every 6 months or so, I have no
No,
problem.
it wouldn't be a one-time thing.
If it's all the time, years ago, we had it at 8, I loved it.
I know,
7 o'clock is, I manage.
okay.
Anything earlier?
Okay, if
I
if
think
there
we
is
did it late.
resistance, let's forget about it.
I think we did it late for years, dear, because you
We
were
waited
working
for
and
you because you were working, Dieter.
was entirely
We wanted to
because of
change
you,
this for
right.
years.
And
Yeah.
then now
Okay.
that you're retired, I think is why it sort of thought. that
Yeah,
wasn't that-
I'm retired, but I'm really not retired.
Of course, I understand.
Nona wanted to say
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that I think Kim Giuliacci would attend our meetings if they didn't almost always conflict with the fire board
Right.
meeting. So, which is 7 o'clock on the last Tuesday of every month. And so only if there are 5 Tuesdays in a month does it not conflict.
What
So-
I hear,
Would-
and we
would
don't have
6
to
Would she
decide.
be able to come at 6 instead,
Yeah.
if it wasn't at
I don't
7?
know.
Because
She
had-
could do
yeah.
Zoom. She probably could do Zoom.
Yeah.
She couldn't come in person, obviously, but she could do Zoom. So
Because
what
we
I,
need her, it's nice to have her once in a while, while we're focusing on this topic, but there's no reason that she should come to most of
No,
our
yeah,
meetings.
yeah. I think, Nancy makes a good point. Megan is not here and Catherine is not here. Okay, so why don't we give it a little bit? I think we also already heard that 5 o'clock is too early. So now we're saying 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. Okay, you haven't spoken.
I would say that if you have a special guest, that you make a one-time change to that meeting to accommodate the special guest. But we leave it the way that it is since it's been working fine.
Yeah, I actually would prefer it to be earlier. I would prefer it to be earlier. I wanted it earlier for a long time, but we couldn't because of Dieter. So let's see, Teresa, you haven't spoken.
I don't really care one
Oh,
way
you
or
don't
the
care.
other,
Okay.
but I do know that, to change the meeting time, I believe we have to go to the town council and get approval.
Oh, yeah.
There's a process.
There's
for
a
this.
process,
It's not
but
just
first-
that we say,
Yep. Yes, but first is, we need to be all in agreement. If we're not in agreement, we're not going to change it.
And I would argue that a lot of us like to eat dinner before we come to these meetings.
That's true.
And if we do it earlier, there's a kind of a incentive for these meetings to last longer. And I'm absolutely really want us to be really short with
Right.
these meetings. Because we should, not spend more than an hour on stuff.
Oh, yeah, that wouldn't change. I don't think the meeting would take longer or shorter because of the meeting time. The meeting is the meeting. So anyway, so think about it a little bit more. No, you didn't say where you were.
I'm okay either way.
Okay.
I kind of like earlier, but I'm
Yeah, I
fine
like
either
earlier
way.
too. Yeah. So let's defer it to next time when Megan comes. I mean, I work too. And Megan works, and we don't know about Catherine. Okay, so we will table this for the time being. Next one is the process report code violations. That's
Can
really
I,
very
can I
simple.
say something on that?
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Christy.
Thank you. I was at the finance meeting. It did go till 6:30, so we need to be able to go to important meetings, so I don't think it should be 5, if anything, 6 or 7. Thank you.
We can't hear you, Christy. We can't hear you.
Oh.
I mean, we can hear you,
Yeah.
but we can't hear what you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I am not for 5 o'clock because the finance meeting went till 6:30 tonight and I would not have been able to attend both So 6 or 7 is much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. Process report on code violations. So I just wanted to briefly update you what I have learned. I think I had mentioned that after I had my meeting with the town manager, that he was a proponent of reporting code violations, and that the town is absolutely interested. If there are code violations, they want to take care of them. So this is the attitude of the town. And there is a very simple, you can go on the website, you can all read it yourselves, what the code violations are. The easy thing is the town has set up an email, which is code@portolavalley.net. And if, let's say, we see, I think we would focus on fencing. That would be our main thing. I don't, maybe lighting, but I'm not sure. Maybe noise, not sure either, but fencing certainly in terms. I'm sorry, say again. That's what, yeah, if somebody illegally cuts down a tree, but that is difficult. How would we know? Yeah, sure.
Well, and I think at least what I'm thinking is not so much that we're out looking for violations and reporting them, as sometimes people come to us because they know we sit on the committee and they say, did you know? And they tell you about something that's clearly a violation. And it's like, I haven't known. I know I'm not the right person to come to, but I don't. I've just sent them to the staff, but I didn't know about this code.
That's right, that's why I'm here.
That's fabulous.
Yes,
Thank you
yeah.
for pointing that out.
Yeah. So it's a code@portolavalley.net. And then I recommend, if you're interested, go to the website that says code compliance on the town. And it gives everything, it talks about planning and zoning issues with setbacks, fencing, so on and so forth. I'm not going to read through it, but I just wanted everybody to know that. And there is also a matrix on that site where they're saying how quickly they respond to it. So they're, and you can see that on the website. Next business day, 3 business days, 7 business days. Okay. So that's just for your information, because I thought that was good news. The next thing is, Judy brought that to me, the thinning out of the trees or the understory on the scenic corridor on Portola Road near Windy Hill.
So you want me to talk about that?
Yes.
In the past, we have had Howard talk to whoever it was at Mid-Penn, and they agreed to allow us to work in that area. He did it as a one-off several times. And then the last time he did something, he actually had a conversation, and there's been turnover there. So I don't know if we don't have Howard, they don't have Mr. X. We probably need to start again. But they gave us dispensation. Basically, they said you can take out everything in that space except the blue oaks. And the idea is that as you walk along there, drive along there, nothing's been done in the last 3 or 4 years. And a lot of both shrubs and trees are growing up along the fence and in the right of way, so that they're starting to obscure the view of the meadow and then eventually of the hills behind. So I think it's appropriate for us to stay on top of this and go back to getting permission again from Mid-Penn in a written form if we can, and multi-year if we can. And then either get the town staff to do the work or have a work day there and do it ourselves.
Why Mid-Penn? Isn't that public right of way?
No, we can do the right of way, but we can't do, a lot of the stuff is in the fence line or just inside the fence line, and we didn't want to encroach on them. Yeah, the right of way is, the fence is sort of at the edge of the right of way. So this side of it, it would just be a matter of requesting Public Works to get on it, but it makes sense to do it as an integrated thing.
The one question I had for you, Judy, because I was walking by there yesterday, and no, I'm sorry, I drove slowly by there yesterday. And what I did notice is when you come from the town, first after the Neelys, there is a berm. And the berm is very high. And where the berm is, I don't think you can see.
No, we're,
through.
and the agreement was always from the roadway that goes that goes up to the Neely property behind.
Yeah.
Goes through the edge of that meadow, from there to, just where things start to rise.
Right, right.
And so it doesn't even go all the way to the Neely property.
Right.
It goes to where things start to rise, and we had agreed we would leave, for habitat reasons, most of everything that was in that clump at the far end. Dieter and I walked this, and took pictures and talked about each individual plant, 5
Yeah.
years ago or so.
Okay.
So yeah, that would leave that. And no, it's none of the work is in the
That's what I
berm
thought.
area.
The reason why I'm asking this, when I was slowly driving by, past the berm, I could see nicely into the meadow. Have you looked?
There are windows into it,
Okay.
yes, but increasingly stuff is growing. So I don't see any reason not to take out most of what's there except the blue oaks.
Well, why don't we start with the public right of way? And when that's done, then ask Midpen. Would that be the course of action?
Can't hurt, yeah. So
So-
what's the action item then?
I don't know
Can
yet.
can I
You're-
understand how this factors into the budget that we just approved?
That's not at all. It's not
Then
our
where-
budget,
So who's going to do the work?
Public Works,
As they've always done before.
as they have always done from their budget.
They have a budget to do that? And
We'll find out.
All we can do is ask and bring it to their attention
Well-
and keep it on their list, basically. The other thing is, we've had chainsaw work days at Frog Pond, where we did a lot of work getting out a lot of coyote brush and that kind of stuff. And we could, if we got approval to do it, we could have a volunteer work day and get it done too, if Public Works can't do it.
We'll bring our chainsaws.
Yeah, there's no lack of people who like to use their chainsaws.
So, okay, you had a question.
So what about Woodside Fire? They were doing the right of way today, right outside Springdown, and they do the right of way for fire risk
Aha.
reduction.
And they have been for
And
years.
Dan Dempsey will just be on it.
Okay.
So you want me to talk to
Yeah,
Dan? Okay,
that's
I'll
great.
talk to Dan.
That might be then resolved right away. And they might also talk to Midpen and
We
do
may
it right-
have a
that's
thing
perfect.
with them
Okay,
already.
we'll give you the action item and then you will report back. All right? Then Megan is not here, so I think we'll jump over D. Because she had brought up, she wanted additional trees on the list, and if she's not here, it's a mute. So we'll roll it over for next.
Marianne, could I just pop back real quick to the code violation reporting?
Certainly.
So my understanding is that their preference is to go through PV Connect, the app,
No, that's not what I was told.
because that's the first line on that page, to go through PV Connect.
That they
Because
didn't
the-
mention
the
PV Connect.
Ideal with PV Connect is that it's actually provides tracking.
So what the town told me is that if there is a code violation, the code violation needs to be reported to the code email. So that's all I can say. I can, double check but it makes sense to me because you say a lot of things to PV Connect, my dog is barking or I have a headache. And
There are subsets on it and some of it get immediate attention, so
Yeah.
don't.
Whereas what I am thinking of to explain that, there is a property somewhere in Westridge and they just bought the property and there was a 4-foot fence and now there is a 6-foot fence. That's a clear code violation. That doesn't need to go to PV Connect, I'm sure. This is something that needs to go to code. So does that answer your question? Okay.
That would go to Westridge HOA. Your example.
According to the town, it needs to go to code.
Okay.
They have a process.
When you say the town, who did you talk to?
I talked to planning.
The head of the planning guy?
I talked to several people. Okay. So the next thing is, as Catherine is not here, and that was really her thing, I sent you the ADU checklist yesterday. And I don't know if you had a chance to look at the ADU checklist. I looked at it And I have the feeling we have learned a lot more in 1 year about ADUs. We are also now much more aware about wildlife corridors. And my feeling is we should revisit this checklist, maybe with a subcommittee, and just double check, does it have really everything we want in there? And we have plenty of time. We did this in 2023. It has been in the black hole since 2023. So, another month or whatever is not going to make much difference.
Yes, I agree. I think we should have a subcommittee
Okay.
and I'd be happy to lead it.
Okay, I would be on it. You would be leading. Do we have a third person? Okay, Peter. All right. Great. So we'll have that. Then and going to old business. So wildlife corridor fencing guidelines. As I think you all know, we were presenting to the ASCC at the last you might not know, to the last ASCC meeting, our suggested changes to the fence ordinance or the fence regulation. And we got very constructive feedback, particularly from Carter, what he thinks can work and what cannot work. And we are going back to revisiting that. I think key takeaways are, the good news is on the 2-acre plus parcels, we don't need to say anything. There is a wildlife corridor because in those parcels, the code is that what is the yard? The definition of the required yard is the setback of 20, 20, 20, 20 or 50, 20, 20, 20. And on the property line, all that could be there is a horse fence. So that answers completely our requirement. So on 2 acres and plus, we're fine. The other, we got quite some pushback on the small parcels. How would you be doing this in Corte Madera or what have you? And so the subcommittee is suggesting that we drop wildlife corridor recommendations for parcels that are smaller than 1 acre. And that leaves us with the task to reconfigure what we need to do with the 1 acre. And we have some ideas, but they are not flushed out. And so what we would like to recommend that we have what do we call it?
Study session.
A study session, a public study session. We would like to suggest it for the second Tuesday in June. We have to check with the whatever committee, with the finance people, if they are not meeting. So we would have a public meeting and would be on Zoom too, where we have a real study session. It's not going to be a free-for-all sort of 5-hour thing. We'll come with a suggested framework, and then it could well be that somebody in the audience or has just the answer, has some really great idea. And so that's what we would like to do. And if everybody is in favor, then we will schedule that. Okay? What do you think? She's not listening. What do you
Rebecca?
think of that?
Microphone.
Microphone. Oh, you're thinking.
Well, I have to say, I live on a 1-acre property. I have a fence all the way around.
You asked about the study session.
Right, the study session. I was going to look up my calendar because I think I might not. be
Well, the
able-
only thing I see, I just looked, the only thing that's on there now for this second Tuesday is Parks and Rec at 7:30.
Well, we could do it at 4, whatever. It doesn't have to be in
Or-
the evening. We
Or
can do
we
it
could
at
do
4.
it the first Tuesday, which is the 10th,
Yeah.
because, wait, so that doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, I'm misreading. The second Tuesday is the 10th and Grace and Equity, but they're not meeting anymore. So that night.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
open.
the time's open.
Okay.
As far as I can tell,
All right.
I'm here.
So then why don't I suggest that's June the 10th at 4 for the study session. And then, we'll post it so the public is being
Have to
informed.
reserve it with probably.
Yeah,
the
I'll
town.
do that. Yeah. Can everybody make it?
That's too far in the future for me to be able to say.
Okay, well, then you will either make it or you won't make it. All right?
But yeah, if a whole lot of us know we're out of town or something, then we should choose another
Yeah,
day. But
is
nobody's
can everybody
certain-
else make it?
Nobody's certain they're away at this point.
Okay,
And I think the idea was just try to get a sense of the political feasibility of doing any of the things that, that we don't want to be too pie in the sky, but we want to be meeting our obligation in a way. There's going to be a lot more if we start getting lot divisions and these 2-acre parcels become 1-acre parcels, then there'll be new perimeter fences. And so if we can get in with some guidelines before that happens, then it's just the way it is, rather than trying, because you really can't go after people after they've got their fences and after the way it's been. So I think that's the motivation for doing it now.
and we want to engage with the public, and the public has good ideas.
Great idea.
Yeah, so that's what is behind it. All right. Next, Woodside Fire Subcommittee update. That's the joint event. Judy, do you want to?
Say just a word about the joint event. I'd like, this is a little bit in the future, to see sort of a show of hands. I went and talked to the town about available nights that we might do it. We decided on late May, early June. And so I'm going to give you some dates, and I want to just see hands of whether it's a yes or a no, so I can cull this list down. Because in order to get Kim to commit, she doesn't do well with, here are 6 dates. You say, here are 2 dates, which one would you want to do? Then she'll say, okay, I'll do that one. So I would like to cull our list down a little bit. So, back here, Monday. So I can tell you the days of the weeks. I only looked at Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, because the other dates don't make sense for doing this. This is similar to the one we did 8 years ago or some balancing fire safety with habitat preservation. And it's a hot issue in town right now, we know. So I think we'll get good attendance. So Kim, the fire marshal, has agreed to do it. And then we need to find the habitat speaker, and the subcommittee hasn't gotten a person yet. We're working on it. Yeah. So here are the dates. Wednesday, 5/28. Anybody know that you're?
My calendar, and I didn't have any idea you were going to ask us for calendar dates, and so I am completely ill-prepared to respond. I'm
Right,
sorry.
so this is just sort of a general idea, it's not a firm commitment. But like, if you always have something Wednesday nights, then you could say, no, Wednesday doesn't work for me then. But, it's kind of, we can do this without, we'll need a quorum to do it, but we won't need everybody here. It's just, it'd be nice to have as many of us here as we can, because we'll learn a lot, I think. So Wednesday, the 28th, Thursday, the 29th, and then the other is June. The first week in June, Tuesday, the 3rd, Wednesday, the 4th. That's planning commission night, so in some ways, that Wednesday's not great. And Thursday, the 8th, actually, so I looked at dates that the place was open, but when I look at this, there are some conflicts with some of the other things. So we can cull the list easily just by not conflicting.
Yeah, and
By
the
sort of-
idea is we want to do it before the school is out, before people disappear for the summer. That's the gating factor.
So that's really all about it now. I'll call the list. We'll invite him. We'll get back to you next time with more info.
And the idea is Kim will speak for 30 minutes, and one on whoever's the conservation committee speaker will speak for 30 minutes. So it's a 1 hour.
And then we'll have
event.
Q&A. So no, we were thinking about 2 hours by the time it was total.
With
Finished,
Q&A.
30 to 40 minutes 30 to 40 minutes. I mean,
And we'll have the whole. Okay. The next one,
Question.
oh, Christy, yes.
Yes, I'm just wondering, since we're talking about wildfire and public works, at what point are we going to be taking the weeds down along Alpine Road? I'm wondering if you know that date. Are we behind? Are we, feels like it was done by now, but when
Taking what
Howard was
down?
here.
The weed. I think she's talking about mowing right of
You
way.
talking about mowing?
Yes, I am. Along the right of way, because we have
Public
a
Works
lot
does
of,
that on their own schedule.
who does?
Public Works does that automatically on their schedule. They mow every right of way in town once a year. And they have a schedule for doing it and kind of watch where the wildflowers are and they go through town in some sort of an orderly way. But that's not something that we have anything to do about.
Yeah, and they coordinate with Woodside Fire, and we can't give you an answer for that, Christy, but my guess is it is too early because they mow once a year, and if they mow now, they would have to mow twice.
I see. So maybe the end of April. So, we're having visitors from insurance inspectors. It might help us. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you might go to the council and say that if insurance companies are going to start to look at things like weeding in like what's growing in the right of way, should the town be doing it twice a year or something? We're not the body to come to because we don't control public works.
Yeah, thanks for that feedback. It's
Thank you,
just,
Christy.
uh-huh.
Okay. Kudos. Judy, have you given any kudos this year, this month, or no kudos?
Haven't thought of anything. Anybody? I mean, what's happened that's wonderful in town? I keep waiting to do it for the Shady Trail, but I understand that's still, it was done, but not done all the way maybe, or not done properly. So that one's.
I think we'll leave the
Well,
kudos
we'll wait.
for this month. No kudos.
So we'll just skip it unless
Yeah.
somebody has something they'd like me to do, in which case I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Then tip of the month, Catherine is not here. The one thing, what I was thinking, it's actually would be weed control. It's very, very suitable what Christy just said. Anybody, any thoughts what we should do with tip of the month for this month?
Well, I don't disagree with encouraging folks to
Weed whack.
start weed whacking, but again, I know that we also had the post about being aware of ground nesting birds and being cognizant of the fact it's nesting season. I'm sure we've all seen all the scurrying around and little territorial things. So
Yeah.
there's that balance. So I agree, it's reasonable to suggest people think about now is a great time to get out there before your thistles go nuts, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you,
Because mine are big.
in one of my hillsides, the grass was up to my, whatever, to my hip.
Maybe just focus on the bad and the worst, like the thistles. It's time to get your thistles out because they've already started. blooming.
Particularly-
Put them in a bag.
While the soil is still soft. Yeah. I'll reach out to Catherine. I mean, she does a fantastic job, with both the tip of the month and the what's blooming.
Right.
So I'll suggest thistles, and she might have some ideas. And then what's blooming?
Last month, she said she had a series of 3, what's blooming now, and that last time she did number 1, so I think.
Oh,
number
okay.
2's all ready to go.
Number 2, okay, I'll reach out. And then the AstroTurf, we will refer because she is the head of that, and so we'll do that next month. You have any update?
Just we're trying to coordinate the information that we currently have and then strategize about what specifically are we prioritizing for activities related to education around AstroTurf.
Okay,
That's kind of where we are.
okay. So next month, all right? I think neither Nona now I have done anything with the UC Davis guy, so we'll work You haven't heard back. Okay, but we want to do that because it's such a good video. And if he allows us to put it on the website, the town website, that would be great. Student owl box, Yogi is not here. So I.
Sent an email asking that somebody say, that they've chosen a location for the all box to go up. He and the young woman who was providing it. And it's on Frog Pond, open space itself, relatively near the school. There was some pushback from some of us about should it be so near the school, but it turns out that down in Frog Pond Park, there's another other kind of owl that lives down there. So they didn't want to have that competition. And after looking around, once again, they decided that's the best place for it. So
So this is,
said-
this is
yeah.
happening.
it's happening.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Nona, open space?
Yeah, so I, I thought it might be helpful just to report on the options and the decisions that the town council made at the April 9th meeting with respect to multifamily housing on Dorothy Ford Park. Maybe everybody is already up to speed on all of that? No, okay. So it's a little complicated, so I actually made a table. And I won't talk about the whole thing, but it will inform you a bit about, actually, let me just hold on to one. Becca. And maybe I'll see if I can share. Should I try it?
Yeah, try it because then the audience.
Yeah, okay. There we go. Okay, and let me just do one other. Okay, so I'm gonna actually, oh, sorry, I went too fast. Let me see if, Becca, you might need to jump in at some point. Basically, the planning department went to the town council with 4 options. Those are listed as 1, 2, 3, and 4 across the top of this table. And the first column on the left has the different components that went into those options. And so that was kind of, like one from row 1 and one from row 3, that sort of thing. The staff was recommending that the council adopt the zoning ordinance amendment, which involves a note that 2.48 acres would be dedicated to multifamily high-density housing, together with that the parcel would be rezoned from open space to multifamily residential. And so that would be the whole 7-acre parcel. And those were the 2 components that planning was recommending to the council, mainly because it was their determination that there isn't really 2.48 acres to carve out, which was what was called for in the housing element. And so the simplest, fastest, cheapest way to get to HCD certification of the housing element, they felt would be to just zone the whole thing as multifamily residential and adopt the amendment to the zoning ordinance that parallels that.
That's number 2.
So that's
One down.
number 1, column 1, and it has lines 1, 2, and A, B, and C, let's say, or the zoning ordinance, the rezone, and also along with basically all of the proposals was to work to replace Dorothy Ford Park housing site. So the staff recommendation is column 1,
right? And there were 3 elements that they included in it.
But aren't, if instead of looking at the columns, you look at this, I understand that. But isn't the first zoning ordinance amendment, which does 2.48, and rezoning all of it, those are 2 different things.
Well,
How
they're
can they
actually
be-
not 2 different things because the zoning amendment is not the same as the zoning map and the zone categories. I don't know exactly how to say it, but they are 2 separate things, really. And so you can do the zoning ordinance amendment where you say you're committing to doing 2.48 acres as multifamily high-density residential without necessarily changing the zoning map. Okay, so, and that's what the planning department is actually recommending rezoning the whole parcel.
Right, because
though.
that's the second thing there, and that
Right, so
says
those are
rezone the whole
those
thing.
are the first 3
Right.
elements were all in the planning department's recommendation to the
okay.
council.
And
I-
then
option
is there-
2
this is a non-reversible thing though, right?
Well,
you
that's a
do it-
question. If you upzone it, can you at some point downzone it? And that's sort of a question on how feasible that would be. So
Yeah.
let's say the alternative was approved by HCD. Let's say some other site could replace Dorothy Ford Park. Could you then downzone it back? And it's, I don't know.
Yeah, in
I've
the
heard
old
it
days you
both
could-
ways.
what I've heard is that some of the new state regulations say you can't change your zoning to make housing harder.
Yeah,
You
well,
can't,
but it's
can't-
already in
yeah.
the housing element that we are trying to find an alternative site. So the sunrise provision is in there. And so it's in the housing element, which should open the door to doing that. But whether or not it would really happen, no one knows. So that's what, at the very bottom, the second to the last row has sort of the positives and the last row has kind of the question marks or negatives for each of
Uh-huh.
these. And the upzoning consequence could conceivably be that you might not be able to downzone it. I don't know once you had the alternative. Okay, let me go a little bit faster because I mostly want to get to the end. But there were a number of alternatives. As I said, there were 4 options that were presented to the council and they deliberated over them. They asked all kinds of hard questions. They said, can we mix and match in other ways? The 4th option was what the Planning Commission had suggested, which is rather than having this sort of floating 2.48 acres in the 7-acre parcel, the 2.48 floating somehow that would be allocated to high density housing. They sort of said, that's not really something that you do, is have, a floating zone within another zone. And so they said, are you sure there isn't 2.48 acres there? And if there isn't, then what is there? And could you do a feasibility analysis to determine how much housing you could do on whatever there is that's outside the baseball field? The problem with that is that it would be expensive and it would take time and it might not get us any closer to where we want to be than we are right now. So the council is not wild about that. Our own liaison, Rebecca, came up with the motion, which was approved by the council, and that was to combine line 2, which is not line 2, sorry, option 2, which was focusing on the alternatives to Dorothy Ford Park, but at the same time doing the zoning ordinance amendment, which had been recommended by the planning staff, but adding to it, excluding the baseball field, the deed restricted area from that. So it would be a 2.48 acre portion of Dorothy Ford Park, not to include the deed restricted area that would be used for housing, but we would not actually rezone, and we would especially emphasize finding the alternatives. And I think it was Rebecca who said, and we really hope to see some progress on this by the next council meeting. So that's what passed, and that's where we are. And tomorrow night's council meeting, they, the goal is to go to the wording that was approved at the April 9th meeting and then put it on it's on the consent agenda, so it wouldn't really be rehashed again. It's really just to go ahead.
To go ahead with Rebecca's
With
suggestion.
Rebecca's, which is the last column on the
Plus
page,
3A,
2
right,
plus 3A.
yeah.
So it's really the zoning ordinance amendment, but adding in the exclusion of the baseball field deed restricted area and moving ahead on housing.
Right. Can I add one other thing?
Yeah.
So the other thing that was added on here was that the town staff would actually meet personally, in person, with HCD staff to see if they would accept this. In other words, not rezoning that property yet, and instead understanding that we're on the precipice of moving forward with other properties that would move forward. So they
Yeah.
have made progress. They've set up a meeting with HCD for Thursday.
Yeah.
They've talked to 3 out of the 4 recommended alternative sites. 2 of the sites have already moved forward. 1 already has plans generated for a 6-unit and a 20-unit project. The other one is moving forward to work with an architect. So I'm feeling a little positive about us having alternatives.
Yeah.
So from
So-
what you're describing, tomorrow night's it's a consent agenda thing to go ahead with the 2 plus 3A, which
Yes.
excludes the ball field. So it's interesting because what's on the forum, what's going around is this, everybody coming from, and make sure they don't build through the ball field. So I think there's a misunderstanding
Right.
about
And the
what's going
consent,
on.
the consent agenda doesn't include the component that Rebecca just told us about, which is the meeting that staff would have with HED and the next steps on the alternative housing sites, because it's really about a zoning ordinance amendment. So that's where it stands. It's, we're moving ahead. I think it's overall really positive.
It's great. Thank you so much, especially for making it so understandable.
Yeah,
with the
well,
table.
It is really complicated.
Yeah.
And there are different aspects to it. And this is just for the multifamily housing part. The mixed use ordinance is a totally separate thing, but but it doesn't concern this committee, so I didn't try to include it.
So under
anything else
open
on
space,
open
you want
space?
me to talk about what we did to Spring Down today? Does
Uh,
that come under open space? Or does that belong
Yeah,
somewhere
it's
else?
open space. Bring down.
Well, no, you can talk about that. I will say one other thing, which is that for anyone who's interested in the wildlife corridor topic, Open Space will be considering that at the next meeting, which is next week. Not looking at fencing at all, just looking at open space parcels and wildlife permeability through open space and things like that. So I think it'll be really complementary to what we're doing here too.
I think
So
it's
my
great. that-
question is that, has Open Space Committee already gone over this spreadsheet that you created, or have they met about all of this, the Open Space Committee?
No, we meet next week.
So I'll just talk about, please.
Oh. This is because of a question that came up at the beginning of the meeting. The deed restriction for the baseball field does include the parking area. So if that's of interest to anyone, I think there was a question about protecting the parking as well, but it's in the deed restriction.
Interesting.
So today,
Are you going to take public comments on this at some point, or should I just not worry about it?
yeah, do it now.
Yeah, go ahead,
before we
Dave.
change.
Yeah, great. Thanks. First of all, Nona, a amazing description of a super complicated thing. I do think the staff believes that we can rezone down if we have a no net loss with our new properties, although given the luck we've had at generating new properties, that may be a thing. And of course, the field, Dorothy Ford Park is town owned. So it's not like a developer can come in and claim builder's remedy. The town council would still have to decide what to do with it. I think tomorrow is going to be a lot more than a consent agenda. I think we're going to rehash almost all these issues because it was not spring break last time, or was spring break last time. They're trying to get a ton of families stirred up about the ball field, rightly or wrongly. So for what it's worth, it's going to be interesting. And finally, I think as I read it, that it's not so much the ball field is deed restricted, it's that we borrowed or got a grant for a bunch of money from the state. And I think we would have to pay back the balance of that money, which is about half paid off. So it's an economic cost. I don't think it's a legal restriction, but I could be wrong. So in any case, it's super complicated, and I hope we find some other sites. So thank you.
Thank you. Judy.
I still had a question.
Oh, Chrissy, yes.
Yeah. So I'm not sure that's true that we can downzone. I think HCD has to approve a downzone. And I'm not sure they'd be likely to do that. So I just wanted to say that for the record. And then I'm concerned about how things are written. So you're saying, Nona, I just heard you say the deed restricted area includes the parking area, but that's not written anywhere. So the public's not aware of that. I'd like to see a drawing of that. I mean, there's some things I'd like to see presented tomorrow night. When we first were presented with the note, it said the Ford Field baseball area. And then in this next meeting, it changes to the deed restricted ball area. And prior to that, it said ball fields. So to me, that's three different terminologies. We have to define the terminology for the public. And I think that's really important to do because what's a ball field without the parking when the parking goes out on?
We're losing you, Christy, we're losing you. We can't hear you.
Okay, so it goes, if you don't have parking for a ball field, it goes out.
So Christy, I'm sorry, but I don't understand how your comments relate to conservation.
Because
specifically
conservation actually created the
the
ball
parking
field
lot.
and the ball field. So
think
conservation way
on the
back
side
in
of it,
1970.
Nona was just telling us what was happening. It was a point of information. It wasn't brought up for us to really decide anything or make a report to anybody. So there's no action item here for conservation. That I think this isn't the form. This isn't the forum where what you're saying can have any impact, Christy.
Okay, I just think at some point we need to look at the history of conservation with Dorothy Ford Park.
Yeah.
And I hope for a conversation in an agenda because there's a lot of information on how this committee created that space for the residents.
You had brought that up in oral communications and so it is appropriate to say that now and with this, and I would say that it's very interesting, and I hadn't gotten a message from you and didn't have a way to get back to you. But I'm intending to go to the history room and look at the folder you're talking about.
And Nancy is willing to just come there anytime you want to read through things. Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Nona wants to make a comment.
I'm not sure if this is that helpful, but I've reviewed that folder as well, the folder on Ford Field in the archives. And one of the things I discovered is that the Almanac archives has a lot of articles about Ford Field. And so I have sent to Nancy
a list with live links of 182 articles in the Almanac about Ford Field. So if anyone would like that, I'm sure we can make that available.
I'd like it. Thank you.
Okay, great. And they cover almost all of the newspaper articles that are in the folder, and that's why I got started. There are a few from the, the Times Tribune or the Palo Alto Times, but most of them are in the Almanac.
Okay, all right. Judy,
I just want to talk briefly about, we had a meeting at Springdown today that I think officially was the joint meeting with the open space and Nona and Nancy and I were there, walked around, looked at the state of things, talked about how things have been, and basically pending your approval came to the decision that what we should recommend is that because of the difficulties we've had over the 6 years we've been trying to do this since we originally came to council and said, you've allowed Springdale to generate into this weedy vacant lot, and they gave us money to try to rehab it and bring back the wildflowers. We have spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort trying to make that happen, and we've had very mixed success. We've had a couple of years where we had good wildflowers, not as good as we'd hoped, but good. And then recently it's been even harder between the staffing difficulties and the money difficulties and the timing difficulties. So we would propose that for 2 years, we pull back and not be beating our heads against that wall, since even with beating our heads against that wall, we produce such poor results for the money spent, and that we just go to providing to Public Works a timetable that's not based on when things are blooming, but based on when can they get their mower out there. And we ask them to mow every 6 weeks or so, which would be about 4 times, starting when they can get the machine mower out there. So not a careful weed whacking, so less expensive. And just tractor mow it every 6 weeks or so that it looks like parkland. So it's the weeds are down, so you can walk, along the path without feeling like you're in a weedy vacant lot. But it's not, we're not trying to fine tune it in a way that helps the wildflowers, because we haven't been able to successfully do it, and some of you have been out in the fall planting seeds, weeding patches, and if you go and walk around out there, there's maybe 1 or 2 tidy tips to be seen and very few of the lupin. So that plus maybe twice a hand weeding to get after the thistles and things, so that the things that would have a significant impact in the future if we don't do them, we'll stay on top of, but we'll sort of let it go. And then at the end of that 2 years, when hopefully the staffing will be more stable, we'll know who's in charge of what, we'll have an engineer that can sign off on things, we'll have some money to do things again. Then we can revisit this and look at potentially other ways to attack the problem. Nancy had some interesting ideas from what her expertise in wine grape management fields and all of that. And so that would be the proposal. Step back for a couple of years, only machine mowing and a little bit of hand mowing. Don't worry about the timing for 2 years, and then resume getting at it if we decide we should in 2027.
I have one question, Judy. How does what you were suggesting differentiate from what has been happening in the last 12 months?
We've been trying to time it. We've been trying to say, okay, now do it now, do it then, do it now. And it rarely happens. It takes them a month to get to it, or Go Native can't come those times. And they've been weed whacking the field so that they could be very careful to go around the patches of poppies or around the little lupin patches that they saw. And we would just say, go out there with your tractor, mow it.
Well, and we've been doing hand weeding, right? Which we're not.
Been doing a lot, but
A
no,
lot
we're
of
still
hand weeding.
proposing that we would probably
Right.
have 2 days of hand weeding for the thistles and the things that, there'll be a whole lot more of them in 2 years, whereas if you just mow those weeds, there'll be the same, the same weeds there.
The
Or
thistles
half.
have to be done in the next 2 weeks.
Right, and over the next 2 years, right. So that would be the thing, whatever's happening now, I haven't been the one who's been doing this, but what has been happening in terms of who's been talking to the town about the timing of the mowing and things. I think it was Catherine until you became chair. Who is it? It hasn't been me. So I don't even know what's been happening in the this spring.
Nothing, I
with-
think,
about
absolutely
it,
nothing.
So maybe nothing.
Yeah.
So, and that,
Well, why don't you, I mean, that sounds good to me. But as I said, I think I would be just a little bit, I would think a little bit of timing, because if you don't do the thistles in the next 2 weeks, we
Right.
don't need to do them at all.
but as always, if I talk to Justin tomorrow and say, we really need to get the thistles done in the next 2 weeks, he'll say, well, we can do it in a month, or we can, Go Native's coming. Sometimes Go Native has dates already chosen, and they just pick what they're gonna do on those days.
Yeah, I
That's
understand.
been one of the
Then he should at
problems.
least mow them. That's all I'm saying. Don't let them go to seed.
Well, they've started going to seed already, so in a way, the idea would be to get cut and bag, right?
You're going to seed.
They're starting, if you walk around behind.
Oh,
the
there?
barn, yeah.
The thing is, if we completely ignore what nature does,
That's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing that twice a year, there are 2 Go Native days of hand weeding. 2 instead of 4, whatever there had been before. And that the mowing be done not with careful timing, because careful timing hasn't worked for us, and just with a machine, which should be less expensive.
I have no problem with the mowing.
Mhm.
But the hand weeding depends on when the soil gets dry.
No, I understand. I hear what
So
you're
either
saying.
this happens or it doesn't happen.
I
And
hear what
all
you're
I'm saying is,
saying.
if it doesn't happen, then let's at least mow as quickly as possible. That's all I'm
Okay.
saying.
Okay, so I'll put on my list of things to do, to talk to Justin
Yeah.
tomorrow.
And usually they're pretty good. They understand. I wouldn't give up completely.
Well, no, it's a 2-year interim,
Yeah, that's fine.
partly because, I'm bruised and bloody from the
Yeah.
banging my head against the wall for all those years, except for the interval. Yeah. Where I was missing in action. And that we just, because there's so much influx in town, and it's so hard, it's just a hard time to be asking for careful timing of, and
Ida, you wanted to say something?
This is not only specific to this particular plot, but it's a general observation that I've made not only in town at various locations, but even up and down the coast. And it's not clear. We spend a good amount of effort, as you said, and money to plant natives at the right time before the big rains come, and sometimes not. And locations, I have seeded up and down Westridge in prominent locations where you can see it when you drive up along Alpine Road with very poor results. I do not know why, but it's not just water, natural water, it's other factors that come in there. For instance, that I'm digressing a little bit, but it's very clear that a good rain year will not necessarily guarantee a great flower display. For instance, there is a great area of wildflowers called Calypso Plain down off of the Central Coast, down by roughly San Luis Obispo inland. And some years, it's absolutely stupendous. The wildflower display, there is one area, if you are willing to drive the dirt road, in some years, there is 70 miles length of solid yellow. I mean, you don't see the grass. And
Not this year.
and this year, they had more rain than we did. I know we are still in the drought here, and so are they, but they have more, and it's very poor. Why? Conditions were right. It was cold when it needed to be, and the rain came, the first rain came in time, and there was follow-up to let it grow, but it's not happening.
That's
And
nature.
and exactly,
Yeah.
so I think your recommendation here is very good. Let's just twice a year at least mow it all down. And the first time is soon, as Marianne says, because if you get those to those thistles before they really go wild, you will find in the future the density of these plants is way down.
Yeah, I'll also, I'll go and take a look. I'll just go and take a look, and we can do this offline. There's one thought that just came to me. And that would be when you're saying doing nothing for 2 years. No.
I didn't say that. I said, don't
doing
worry
what
about the
you're doing.
timing, mowing like 4 times from
Yeah.
earliest they can get in there until the end of when it stops growing.
What
so
I'm
much.
thinking, there would be one possibility, and I would be prepared to do the brunt of the work, to do this for 1 year and to do a fundraiser. We need $30,000. Generally speaking, it is not difficult in this town to get $30,000. It's just making the effort.
Well, currently, we actually have the money to do more because open space, the Open Space Fund is funding the maintenance of Springdown now. That happened last year and this year when there was always budget issue. So there is the money. So this is not just a matter of money. It's a matter of why spend the money and the time and the effort if all it produces is what we're seeing out there
I see.
now.
I see what you're saying. Okay, that's fine.
On the, and on the other hand, we can't ignore the fact that it was drop dead gorgeous for 2 years after they first got it back from the horse property. And they took out the rink and they did a bunch of stuff and they regraded some of it and they brought in topsoil. And I wasn't on the committee then, but there was,
I remember.
but everything they did then, if you remember for the next 2, and then they hydroseeded or something, and it was just dense wildflowers there. It was fabulous to walk through all spring. So we've had that fantasy in our head, and maybe that doesn't happen unless you have a real back to scorched earth and start again.
No,
Which
I
is
understand.
terribly expensive, and that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
going to happen probably, although, you know, if the town settles down and we get organized and get finances under, you know, it might be that we could do something like that in a couple of years. But right now,
Sounds
to be
good.
spending the time and energy trying to perfect something that we're, you know, we're so dismally far away from what we're trying to do, it just seems to me it's
That sounds good.
foolish
Yeah. that
and
sounds good.
wasteful.
Okay,
Okay?
all right.
So is everybody clear?
So then
Four-
going
four
back to,
mowings?
we're taking the $800 out of the budget.
Right, so that's the bottom line then is let's take the money for
Okay.
seeds for Springdown out of the budget.
So we'll take that out. Sounds good.
Anybody have any
Any
more
other,
questions about what I'm proposing? Is it clear what I'm proposing? Okay,
okay.
need to vote on it?
No, I
Probably.
don't think we
No.
need to vote on it.
Okay.
We don't need to vote. All right. Where are we? Public Works, nothing on Public Works. Trails and Path, Teresa?
So most of the meeting was focused on their goal setting for next year, or this coming year. And also there was mention of the work that's been performed on Shady Trail. It's mostly done, as I understand it, although there was a question if it was entirely done or not. So that was a follow-up item. And then I just wanted to remind everyone, the horse fair is coming up on May 17th.
We'll bring our horses.
Absolutely not. No dogs, no horses, no.
Thank you, Teresa. The horses at the horse fair?
Ah, okay. Wildfire hasn't met, so I have no update. ASCC we already covered. That was the wildlife corridor. And then Nona can give us a quick update on the Woodside Environment and Open Space Committee, who came to us because they would like, Woodside would like to become a rodenticide-free town. Nona.
Yeah, right. So the person I talked to was Janice Maury, who's basically a new member of their sister committee to our Janice Maury. Yeah. And so I shared the flyers that we had for our events, the speaker list, the trap matrix for as alternatives to rodenticides, and the ordinance that we helped draft. And we basically just compared notes on that. But in the process of that, we talked a little bit about the Backyard Habitat Program, which is something we adopted from them. And they said that they tried something new this year, which was sending out a postcard encouraging people to apply for a backyard habitat with how you do it and where you do it and why you do it. But just a postcard, and they got 4 applications just from.
Yeah, so I was thinking we could put it into Elizabeth newsletter. Instead of doing a postcard, we could do some text for that into Elizabeth's newsletter.
Elizabeth,
The town,
Martelli.
the
Yeah.
town newsletter,
oh, the town, the update,
the update,
the weekly
Yeah.
update.
because that doesn't cost any money.
Right,
Doing a letter,
absolutely.
doing a postcard is money. We don't have that.
Well, we should put in the budget.
Well, let's put it in budget. Okay, do we want to put it in the budget?
I don't know how much it costs, to be honest.
It's
I haven't
several
looked into
thousand
it.
A lot.
dollars. 3,000.
Yeah,
But
that's a lot of money.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Next
We
year,
can't
maybe.
check, yeah,
Let's
but-
try
Let's
in
try,
the town
let's
update.
try the newsletter first.
Yeah, let's do the newsletter first, because $3,000 is way out.
Free.
Yeah.
So who's gonna
Oh,
write
my.
it up and who's gonna,
No, no, no.
okay.
We'll
no,
write it
okay.
up.
Okay, and then the last thing, and I just want to touch on it because we're already so late. One of the most difficult jobs we have, in my opinion, are doing the site reviews. It's a lot of work, it's important work, and considering what we did with the tree process, when I'm looking what we have on the site review template, or what have you, we have, it leaves a lot of room to interpretation. And so what I would like to suggest, depending how everybody else feels, that maybe we, put together a subcommittee and look to make it, to put some more than guidelines into the site review template that would make it easier for the subcommittee to write the report, to write it, that it makes sense, and to have it more consistent. Because
So-
depending who goes out at the moment, the reports look very
So
different.
to revise the boilerplate
Yes, revise the boilerplate.
and to make a guidelines document, which is
No,
separate from the
well,
boilerplate.
whatever you call it.
No.
The boilerplate, I would, less like a boilerplate, I would see more like 1, 2.
Checklist. You'd
Yeah,
rather it
something
be a
like that.
checklist.
So that, for example, the idea came or was born, one of the reasons was the big building at the Priory, whatever you call it, the athletic building. I don't know why, but I didn't know that they were building this until I saw the poles. I don't know how, did you know? I mean, who knew on the Conservation Committee? Did you know because we did a site review, or did you know from somewhere else?
They had several preliminary walk-arounds talking about the original one. It was supposed to go back behind where the pool and the current gym
Uh-huh.
is.
Mhm.
And they had, that. And then the next thing I knew, it was up front, but, yeah, so I had gone to several things.
So you knew it from ISCC. It seemed to have never really come to us.
Yeah,
Well, I
I
think
agree.
because
I think
they,
Teresa
we
and
ran-
Peter
I
did.
disagree. It
Yeah, but
did.
all we did is we looked at trees.
That's right. That's our purview. So
but we went there twice.
Okay, so, well, that sort of even increases the argument I'm trying to make.
what are you wishing
What-
that
what- what-
we had done?
That we would have been aware that there is a building that has an impact on the corridor,
it doesn't have an impact. It's well outside the scenic corridor. I disagree. So and actually,
Well, we just had a meeting and the town asked us to have a meeting to do some planting. So Judy, you just went there to do some planting.
Marianne, when we were talking about changing the template for the site visits,
Right.
right? And
This goes hand in hand.
And you feel that if we had a different process on site visits, that we would know
Yes,
about this?
that's what I'm saying.
And I don't agree.
Okay,
I don't think, I think that we have a liaison on ASCC, right, which would have alerted us to this project. So why didn't the ASCC subcommittee? Okay, so I don't think. So changing the process on site, I've been impressed with all of the site reports that I've read by everyone in this committee. They're all very professional, very detailed. You're right that everyone has their own kind of little style.
course, yeah.
Guide, but I would argue that that template has been very useful for me. And then reading each of your examples that you write has been, like if there isn't a complaint, why change it?
yeah, so I agree with you generally what you're saying. The one point where I feel relatively strongly, I would have liked to have seen a site report of that subcommittee that says somewhere at the top, the Priory is building a 3-story building, which is visible from the scenic corridor. Should we do some screening or something
was-
like that?
It was very hard to appreciate that until the story poles.
I
went
know.
up, because I had
I
seen the
agree.
plans and I had no idea how gargantuan it was going to
Right.
be.
You had no
I looked
idea.
at the plans and I can read plans well, and they were elevations, et cetera. But it's like, whoa, and the story poles went up to something else. But I would say two things. I think the scenic, when you say it's well beyond the scenic corridor, my understanding of the scenic corridor is that on those two roads, there are setback rules and that kind of thing. But the scenic corridor itself is everything you see from Alpine and Portola. In other words, when you're going on Portola, it's everything you see up to and including the foothills. That's the scenic part of the corridor. So it does have some impact, but it's not our job. We're not in control of the scenic corridor. So it's not, when a site visit comes, it's not, what we're asked to do is comment on the landscaping and the trees and that sort of thing. So the fact that
What I'm thinking is screening.
usually that's screening from neighbors, right? But, and if you put a big screen across there, then you lose the vista of the hills and the field. So I think it's kind of a one-off. It's kind of unusual because it's such a huge thing. And
I
it's
hope so. I hope it was.
So out of,
Nona has something.
I think viewshed is a really big thing, and but I would tend to expect it to be more in the ASCC realm than our realm. And so maybe we should just have a conversation with ASCC about, is there input from this committee that would be helpful?
We could do that.
I don't know.
We could do that.
And I don't think it's unusual to have view shed questions, because we have a lot of hilltoppers around
Yeah,
here.
no, there are a lot of viewshed questions. Yeah, we have a lot of hilltoppers.
Yeah, if
So
I can
what your
piggyback on
recommendation-
what Nona said real quick. There were hours of discussion on screening at the ASCC and other committees. So it's great that they have them ask you for more input, but it's not like they forgot about the thing. I mean, there was there was discussion about it, but maybe they should have had your input also. Just thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I think even, you know, it used to be that every time we did a site permit, we brought the plans and we all looked at it here together and and then that was terribly time consuming and
Very.
didn't always add much to the process. That a subcommittee can do it just as well, if not better. But, and I think even if that one had come and we'd rolled the plans out,
We might
we
not have
still
known.
would have had no concept
Yeah.
of what we were,
The
what
thing
was
is,
gonna happen.
for
Yeah.
example, Teresa, because I have done some site visit with Teresa, and Teresa is really good. In her, if you look at her reports, they start out with a summary, what's being built. And that's really good. But we're not doing this every time. And so that's, you know, it's little things I'm thinking.
So you tweak, yeah, you tweak the boilerplate and make that the first paragraph.
That's
if-
right.
If we should be doing that.
That's
So-
right.
So why don't we have a subcommittee that looks at the boilerplate,
Yeah.
improves it, simplifies it, tweaks it, whatever way various people think it needs, bring it back to the whole committee, and
That's what,
it might take several
agree.
iterations to make everybody happy, but
okay.
that,
Yeah, I'll be happy to be on that site for me. You want to be on
then
it?
I'll do it
Okay.
since I wrote the original
That's right,
thing.
you wrote the original.
So all the
Nona,
flaws
do
in
you
it,
want
I'll
to
take
be?
responsibility for all
Yeah.
the flaws in it, and I'm not annoyed at all if you want to change it.
Do we have a third person? Well, then we'll be the two of us. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's that. And then Judy wanted to just say a few words, what she learned from Nona and Judy were there.
Oh, you want to?
No, no, whatever.
Yeah, it's very
Either one of
minor
you.
that the plans that the landscape architect had drawn were criticized, and so there was a subcommittee that went back out. The landscape architect was there, ASCC was there, some of us were there, and some other neighbors were there, the Priory folks were there. And we sort of reworked, the criticism was that what was there was too dense and too, a little too polyglot. And we urged them to have it be more strategic in terms of what it blocked from where. And we actually put flags in the, go here, this will go there. So it got revised to being a little less dense, considerably more strategic, with clumps of toyons and I think Holly Lake Cherry, Holly Lake Cherry was the other in specific spots, trying to hide the colored thing that runs around the track primarily, leaving some views open across the field and so blocking the big building. There's a lot of screening in the building itself up close to the building. This is what we were talking about, up near the little white house, what was going to go in there.
Okay, thank you very much. All right.
Can I
Yes,
just
please.
add, I'm not sure if you mentioned that 2 trees will be removed, the big eucalyptus and the deodar cedar. And
Good.
that'll be really nice for seeing into the majestic valley oak and the meadow and stuff. So I think it'll look
Oh, that's
really good.
That was worth going
Yeah.
there. Okay. All right, there's nothing to talk about the tree permit. With the exception of maybe one thing, because we learned that and everybody else should learn from that. We had one emergency tree permit because it was on Possum because one big oak tree keeled over and hit the neighbor. And when Nona and I went there and we looked at the original tree that had fallen, which was a beautiful, beautiful old oak, what had happened, this is another one of those areas like on Cervantes where the water table is relatively high, but it was okay for the time being. But they had done some landscaping and they had put in these beautiful, you have seen those oblong concrete big pavers with a little bit of grass in between. And they had done this path right next to the oak. And what happened to this beautiful oak? It was drowning in water. And the roots died. And then one day, 2 weeks ago, bam, it fell. So the landscape, if there was a landscape architect, I don't know, but the landscape person should have realized that you don't put very big, beautiful cement pavers or whatever that are right next to an oak that then will have problems with the runoff and with the water standing there, and it will die and it will fall on your neighbor's house.
Smothers it. basically,
Yes, it's
yeah.
not. Okay, so I just wanted to share. It's a shame. It is such, this was such a beautiful tree. It was one of the oldest trees. It was sad. It was really sad. It was humongous. I'm sure the owners are very sad too. Okay, and with that, so the next one meeting is on the 27th at 7 o'clock. I have a feeling this is going to stay that way, but we'll see. Yes. Okay.
We were
Okay.
going to talk about it
We'll
again
talk
next
about it
time.
next time when Catherine is here and when Megan is here.
And I checked the town calendar and
Yeah.
there's at least 5 meetings that are 7 or later. And there's about 6 that are earlier.
Okay,
So it's
okay.
about a 50-50 split
Thank you for
at
sharing.
the
that.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in case you're
Yeah.
wondering. Since you put me on the spot and asked me
Thank you. I appreciate
which
that.
one, but all you have to do is look at the town calendar to
Anyway,
see for yourself.
I still would
That's a
prefer it
large
early.
number,
Yeah.
yes.
I still would prefer it early. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and with that, we're going to convene and thank you very much. Oh, yeah, we couldn't share